According to a study by the European Patent Office, most patent applications in the additives manufacturing sector come from the USA, followed by Germany, with a large gap to all the other countries. This is reason enough to take a closer look at these two countries in an interview, and I've invited two guest experts who, on the one hand, have a good overview of their countries, but also have a feeling of how the willingness to invest is suffering from the current situation. I welcome virtually here in our Formnext studio Terry Wohlers from Wohlers Associate and Max Milbredt, Senior Manager Electronics from the Germany Trade and Investment. Hello and welcome, both of you. Hello Max, hello Terry, good to have you here. How are you today?
I couldn't be better. How about you, Sven?
I'm awesome. Kind of tired, but it's impressive how many new insights we get here at Formnext, so I'm totally satisfied with the format. So, Terry, there's really no need to introduce you to our community, so to allow me to start with a personal question, and I hope you get it. So, you say on your website that you have an insatiable hunger for adventure. Do you remember that? Yeah? And that's that's why I've taken many exciting trips and visited many faraway places. That's what you write there on your homepage, okay? So my next question can already also be answered by Max. Why not take a real adventure and found a startup in Germany? Has this ever been a topic for you?
Well, has it been a topic? I work with many companies that have started up companies in Europe and Germany. So I've been able to be a part of that activity, but our company has toyed with the idea of maybe a division or a group in Germany. We have many friends and business contacts in the country, and it's one of my favorite places in the world to visit. So, for Wohlers Associates, or for me personally, to start a company in Germany, I haven't really given that serious attention.
But Max can confirm it would be an adventure, definitely, but Max would help, that's for sure. So focus more on additive manufacturing. How do you currently experience the current time and situation in additive manufacturing?
That's for me or Max?
Yeah, Terry, so again, yeah.
The current situation, well, it's challenging overall. You know, if you look at aerospace and some other industrial sectors, they're not doing as well as they had in 2019, or certainly before March. Some sectors, such as automotive, is coming back. Some medical applications are strong. Certainly any outdoor activities and products tied to them, whether it's hiking, biking, camping, fishing, those kinds of products that are supported by additive manufacturing are doing extremely well, very, very well. And so, but overall, the business is down. We think we'll know more early next year as we begin to quantify the current situation.
Okay, thank you. Max, you sent me an interesting survey, and I want to mention that. In the annual survey of the American Chamber of Commerce, the American companies surveyed rated Germany as a business location with 1.8, which is, I guess, is much better than 2018. And my question to you is, what has changed since 2018, and what role do you play, or the GTAI play, in this survey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, very many things have changed, obviously, since 2018. In 2019, everybody was still very much, in a happy-go-lucky kind of state. And we see more and more adoption across Germany in the industry of additive manufacturing technologies. And obviously, I don't have to tell you the changes that have come ever since 2019 to 2020. Obviously, with the whole pandemic, interestingly, 3D printing was able to make a splash also there, with things like, there was quite a big effort to print disposable medical things, things like face shields. There were parts that were printed for ventilators for hospitals, so that actually got a lot of attention. And I think the second part was, how did we help? We actually helped one company from Australia this year. They developed actually a surface coating that was antiviral. And actually in the middle of the pandemic in April, they opened a new office in Germany, which we were quite happy to see how they can also contribute to the community in Germany now.
I mean, considering the current situation, nobody's allowed to travel. It's difficult to visit on-site a country where you probably go to. Explain a little bit the task of GTAI and how that has changed, let's say, the recent month, because I think your work has experienced a tremendous change in the current situation, right?
That's true. So what we do is we help companies from other countries that want to set up some sort of presence in Germany. So typically they found a new office first, usually sales, that's what they start with, but also projects relating to R&D or manufacturing. We kind of offer free of charge advisory to them. So we're a government agency, 100% funded by the German government. And we consult on anything starting from the first idea, market entry strategy, that type of thing, tax and legal questions, financing and investment grants, all the way down to finding office space locally, comparing different cities in Germany, all that type of thing.
And how's that working right now? I mean,
it's definitely changed a lot. Like you said, we are quite used to people actually coming over to visit, have a look at different sites, get a feel for different cities, that sort of thing. And everything has moved online, obviously, and we have seen also quite a dip, obviously, in not in the interest that people have in the market. That's actually picked up quite fast over the summer, but it's definitely more challenging. You have to get the services like, for example, notaries or lawyers, tax consultants. All of that has to be done online right now.
Okay, we will come to that establishing a company later again. But Terry, another question for you. I just read a current statistic that if it comes to machines, the US is the leading country in the world. So either it's plastics or metals. If it comes to 3D printing, the majority of machines are being sold out of the US. On the other side, the most users, or the most users are in Germany, with far distance to the second-placed Chinese colleagues. So would you then consult companies or printing machine companies in the US to export to Germany or focus on Germany, knowing that? Or do you see that as a trend?
Yeah, if that is actually true, it probably is per capita. I haven't seen the data to actually support that, but it could very well be the case. But absolutely, to answer your question, it makes perfect sense, and many companies have exported their products and services to Germany, and some of the startups that are young and just getting going, of course, typically they first develop and get established here in the U.S. if it's a U.S. company, and then they work towards getting something in Europe, and Germany is often the gateway country to enter Europe. And so absolutely, I would urge, in fact, we're working with some startup companies now, and I urge them to look at Germany as a place to go sooner than later.
Why do you think, Terry, there are more users? I mean, the statistic says, I can send it to you in order to prove it afterwards. So the statistic says US is only on 6th place if it comes to users. How does that come that most of the technology has been developed and produced in the US, but the users using it for applications are much less than, for example, in Germany? How do you think, why are there more users in Germany if it comes to 3D printing?
Yeah, like I said, I would like to accept your offer to send that. I would like to see it, and I'm not disputing it. I just haven't seen it. But let's assume that it's accurate. And so if it is, then you look at the likes of Airbus, Daimler, BMW, Audi, Bosch. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And they are world-class companies, and they push the limits in terms of their adoption of new methods and technology. And of course, additive manufacturing is one of them. So they have operations around the world. Many of those companies do, and so it makes sense that they would accept the idea of using additive, not only for modeling and prototyping, but also for advanced tooling applications, and then of course for actual series production, which is where the money is ultimately.
Great. Max, so I mean, you've heard that. That would be another argument for you and your work, right? How you are addressing companies, or it's more like that you wait for them addressing you, or are you specifically looking for companies to talk to?
Well, it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes my life a lot easier if people come to me, of course.
Same with me.
But
yeah.
we do reach out through forums like today. And Terry just named a whole bunch of reasons why I've been attending Formnext the last couple of years, and why we are also increasing our presence here. We constantly try to find and identify industries and companies that might have an advantage actually founding up or investing into Germany as a country. And we believe, especially for what Terry said, Germany has a very, very strong manufacturing tradition. Actually, as a share of GDP, it's, if not the highest of all the Western developed countries, or the G7 countries. So we believe that there is very, very large potential as these companies adopt additive manufacturing more and more. And that's something, one of the strong points, together with, especially also the world-renowned German engineering education system, that we try to push, and that we try to convince people that it makes sense for them to invest in 3D printing in Germany.
Great. Question to Terry. We have been talking a lot about education the last couple of days. How do you see the educational aspect regarding additive manufacturing in the US? Is there a lack of talents? Is there a sufficient number of talents growing up in order to support and push forward the additive manufacturing, or would you say it's quite difficult at the moment?
Well, I would say overall it's a bit behind. I think formal education is playing a role, but it's typically longer term. If you look at high schools and college, university level, and then workforce development and training also, I think, has some catching up to do. But I believe, and we don't really have data to quantify this, at least I haven't seen any recent data, but I believe that the demand for qualified engineers and technicians around additive manufacturing, the demand exceeds the supply. And certainly that will be the case in the future, I believe, as companies scale this to manufacturing quantities. So I'm hoping that organizations will address the need and get ahead of it, rather than always being in a catch-up situation.
Okay. Max, considering let's call it the last transaction you made with companies coming over to Germany, what was the main motivation to come over to Germany of those companies?
It's usually a mix. I would say the main reason why they came over was actually the big market that Germany is, especially with regards to manufacturing companies. And they also told us that logistics are important. As Terry mentioned earlier, a lot of companies use Germany as sort of the beachhead into all of Europe. I mean, it's the biggest market within the European Union, which in and of itself is more or less the biggest market in the world. And so logistics matter, and Germany is sort of in the center of Europe. So you can also distribute your machinery or your products quite easily. So that was a big part of it. And also, like I said, that was also a reason they gave us. They were able to get some good talent in the country, that's one of the key factors in this industry.
Okay. And how do you see obstacles for the companies to get into Germany and set up a branch here?
It depends a little bit on where they're from. Some companies are worried about labor laws in particular, especially that's been my experience with companies from the US. But usually once, of course the system in Germany is different than it is in other countries. You have workers' councils, and in some parts you have strong unions still, which that can scare some people. But generally speaking, the more that people get accustomed to it, the more they understand how the system actually works. Usually, those fears kind of fade away. So that's one of the main examples that I can think of right now.
Okay, Terry, how
so
are go ahead.
Can I ask Max a question?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Again?
So Max, here in the U.S., it's extremely easy to establish a company, especially if you're a U.S. citizen, and it's very little paperwork. In fact, if you want to act as a sole proprietor, it's zero paperwork. If you want to set up an LLC, it's a very low cost and very, very quick. I have a friend in Hamburg, and he said that it was, he didn't describe it as a nightmare, but it was very difficult, time-consuming, expensive to establish. And he's a German, born and raised there. Mm-hmm. Very difficult. Now, this was years ago, so maybe can you respond to that? Have times changed, and how is it today to establish a company there?
Generally speaking, I can understand why your friend might have said that. So it might be easier in other countries to establish it, to establish a company, quite frankly. Although I can tell you, if you're sort of just a freelancer, sort of sole proprietor, what you described, it tends to be quite easy as well. I actually did it myself once, and it's also just you can do it online, but it also depends on which city you're in and which municipality, so it differs from city to city sometimes. But there are also options now because Germany has reacted to it being easier especially in the Anglo-Saxon world and in other countries. So, for example, a couple years ago, there was no option such as I believe in the US you can found certain types of LLCs with just $1 in share capital. And Germany has now established in its law a similar type of entity, which is called a UG, and you can start it with €1 in share capital, and there's sort of some standardized processes to make it easier. But I understand that in the US, I think in a lot of states, yes, it can be still a little faster, but it's gotten easier over time in Germany as well.
Oh, good, thank you. Forgive me, Sven.
Now, Terry, question for you. I mean, your report is quite famous and used by everyone I know at least. And you are creating this worldwide review. In order to create a worldwide review, you need to talk to a bunch of people, to a lot of people all over the world. How is that process going on? And you know what I mean? So how do you gather all this information?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. We appreciate it very much. We're very proud of the report. We've been doing it for 25 years, so we've had many years of practice. And in the beginning, it's more or less by trial and error. But we've been fortunate to have developed many friends and colleagues around the world, and a lot of trust too. I think that's very key because. Typically, someone does not send a stranger sensitive information, and so they trust when they send us information that if we say that we'll only share certain parts, but the rest of it will be kept secret, they trust that that's what we will do. We've never betrayed that trust in 25 years. So I think that's a big part of it. I think also attending events like Formnext in the years past and next year, and even this week, meeting people, face to face and ultimately in person, I think is key. And participating in events and working with companies, it's you build this network. We think we cast a pretty big net around the world, and fortunately, people, we've had this past edition, the current edition, the 2020 edition. More than 80 contributors from 33 countries have contributed to the report, and of course we have a core team working on it too. It's a team effort, and we rely on. We don't for a moment think we know what's going on in the ground in Germany, for example, as people in Germany. So we lean on and rely on our friends in Germany to provide a state of the industry report on Germany. And that's what we do around the world.
Great. So Max, I mean, if you hear that, Terry is in use of German friends to deliver data and insights. Is that something you don't have in a very good amount and value? So could you deliver data to for example, Terry? Because if Terry includes it in his report and reports a little bit about the German situation, it might be an indirect advertising for your work, right?
That's true. I actually haven't thought about it. It's a good question. Maybe there is some parts that we could maybe contribute to. Although to be on the humble side here, I'm sure actually the industry experts that Terry interviews, they know a lot better about the state of the industry than I do. But maybe there is some form that or some data that we can contribute in terms of greenfield investments by international companies, that sort of thing. But so far, I've actually been more of a user, not so much a contributor. So I can confirm what you just said. I have it right here. So I can only urge anyone to read that report. I myself do it too.
As we are public format, we should.
That's actually a good idea. So Max, let's talk after today or sometime even later today. I think that you probably uncover information that perhaps others in Germany do not. So let's definitely talk about it.
Yep, sounds good.
Great. Terry, I need to ask a question. I hope you don't mind. It's like at the moment you have several topics in the US to cover. So you have the COVID situation, which is very, very very important at your country because you have been hit very, very hard. You had just recently the election finalized. So is there room for innovation, and how are the startups right now doing? Is anybody concentrating? Is business as usual, or are the bigger topics a little bit distracting?
Well, it's definitely not business as usual. Many people are working from home, as I am, but when you switch gears, when you do things differently, sometimes that can spark new ideas and innovation. So my belief is that we're continuing to see new products being developed, new ideas maturing and considered. So it is different, and it probably isn't to the same degree as it has been before the pandemic. But my belief is that things are moving forward just in a different way than they have in the past.
Is there, talking a little bit about money, if you don't mind, Terry, is there a way in the US, if you are a US company and you want to go abroad, probably to Germany, is there kind of support where the US government says, okay, there are monies, there's money that we give to the startups or to companies to move abroad and to export goods? Is there some kind of support?
Well, I believe there is. Certainly our venture capital system, our investment community is quite active and strong even now. And so when a young company wants to expand outside the US, they often receive rounds of investment from venture capitalists. And so they can often use that money as they please. If they want to open an office in Germany, for example, then they would have the right to do so. Often the major investors have a say. They may have a role in the board of directors and can help influence those kinds of decisions. But certainly we are not lacking money for new product development and research and also expanding a company's commercial activities. And so I have not seen that as an obstacle at all.
Max, on the other side, if I'm a company from the US and I want to come over here to Germany, is there any, beside the consultation, are there any, is there any kind of support money-wise or investment-wise from the German state in order to support the companies to be here?
Sure. Maybe important to note is once somebody sets up a company in Germany, the moment that happens, they are treated as a local company. Mm-hmm. And they have the right to the same sort of funds as any normal German company does. And there are, there's quite a big system. Usually most famous and most popular are what we call investment grants, non-repayable ones. So if you contribute to value-added, things, if you have capex, if you build a new facility, you have to procure equipment, that type of thing. There are non-repayable grants available up to the tune of maximum of 40% of your investment costs. Or alternatively, you can use the same type of money for payroll costs, for example. So those are quite substantial. And there's, of course, also the wide open field of R&D funding that's available if that's, if people are doing development work. So there are a number of programs that support manufacturing, digital manufacturing and additive manufacturing in particular from that side. So I would say there's actually quite a healthy public side of the funding. And of course, as Terry mentioned also, there's VCs that are active and that are specialized in 3D printing, additive manufacturing, that support people in the startup phase as well. So there's actually quite a big bouquet, if you will, of financing options.
Leading to the next question, I mean, additive manufacturing is still quite a small market compared to other markets. So if you oversee the overall market size, we are talking this year about roughly $12 billion US dollars. Billion US dollars. So it's not that big. Why are you as GTAI? You have probably the chance to have much bigger companies locating here in Germany. Why is additive manufacturing a focus? Why you are participating at the Formnext? I mean, this is the conclusion out of it. Why was this popping up?
Largely, maybe two things. One is, according to Terry, as far as I understand, the worldwide market has grown in the double digits for many years now. Last year, I think he put it at 21.2% worldwide growth. So it's a really happening industry. It's not yet saturated market. So there's going to be, companies are going to grow healthily for sure that are active in this market. And it's also a nice mix, actually. We don't only deal with the very large established players. But we support anybody from the startup phase to, let's say, medium-sized, specialized additive manufacturing players, all the way up to maybe the established industrial companies that now want to participate with maybe an extra business unit or that type of thing. It's really because of the growth, and we believe it's the future. That's really that 3D printing stands for. That's the reason. And that's really why we're active in this market. And why are we at Formnext? Is precisely to meet these types of people that are making the developments happen with regards to the strong market that you see in Germany with the already established manufacturing players.
Great. Terry, I mean...
Can I say something about that too?
Of course.
So the just under 12 billion is tied to 2019, and that's only products and services directly tied to the industry. It doesn't attempt to capture the real economic impact from the likes of Airbus or BMW. In other words, when they save money because they use it for product development and avoid expensive errors downstream, or when they're manufacturing product, with additive, we do not capture that. And so it's really it's an indicator as to the growth of the industry, but it's not a comprehensive view of the actual economic impact of additive manufacturing.
Yeah, that's a very valuable insight, Terry. Thank you for that, because that's exactly the case. You don't look at the whole cake. This is what I get from your statement, right? Terry, I mean, you work also as a consultant. What is the size of company normally approaching you when asking you for consultation in additive?
Well, it's all over the map. Currently, we're working with a medium-sized U.S. company, also a startup company from two Europeans that moved over here some time ago. And so those are relatively small companies, but we've worked with some of the largest corporations in the world. We've worked with many governments here in the U.S., different agencies, Europe, South Africa, Australia, and so forth. So it's from the smallest of companies to the largest, and then also government agencies, and also academic institutions. We've done a fair amount of work with them as well.
Great. So I need to say thank you at this moment because we have only 1 minute left. Thank you both of you for joining us here. Terry, it was a pleasure to see you in live. Max, you as well. Great insights. And as this is a Formnext Connect, I would say after the 30 minutes I spent with you, I would say the two of you make a perfect match. And I mean that more on an economic basis. Yeah? So probably you should exchange contact data, get in touch to each other, because I think Terry would be a great source of potential candidates for you, Max. And on the other side, Max would be has a great potential in delivering data and insight on the German market, probably cross-industry-wise. So I hope you enjoy afterwards a fruitful conversation. It was great to have you here. Thank you so much, and good luck and health for the future. Okay?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.